Thank you, Elena. I think everyone knows me with those. Teresa, I don't think we've met before, have we?
We were in the same leadership Beaverton class, actually, Mike.
Well, I didn't want to presume. Yes, it's been a heavy day. I've started a new job yesterday and I'm drinking from a fire hydrant for the from Tualatin Parks and Recs. Yes, that's not from Tualatin Fire. I feel like I've been drinking from a fire hose, but thank you. But yeah, so things are a little bit rushed today and I apologize for being out of order. I normally start this on time. I'm normally logged in a little bit earlier, but thank you very much for joining us. My name is Mike Elner. I'm the chair of the South Beaverton NAC. Would you like to introduce yourself as we go around? There are some new faces here. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, Kevin, would you like to start?
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Kevin Teater. I'm here as a guest. I'm running for City Council position 2. So I'll be talking more with you in a little bit. But for work, I work with the Beaverton Downtown Association and I live in the Vos neighborhood.
Wonderful. Teresa, would you like to go next?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Payne. I am running for Beaverton City Council position number 2 to replace Laura Mitchell's seat. And I'm very happy to be here. I will also be speaking a little later.
Okay, thank you very much, Teresa, for coming. And I do recognize you now, I'm sorry.
My high-pitched voice will get you every time.
Well, I wasn't sure, so I've met a lot of new people so anyway. Lisa, nice for you to join. Would you like to introduce yourself? Or move on to someone else? Debbie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Debbie Stewart, treasurer of the South Beaverton NAC. And I also serve on BCCI, but I am not the South Beaverton BCCI rep.
Okay. David.
Hello. Turn my camera back on. Hi, I'm Dave Stewart, member of the NAC board for South Beaverton. And maybe someday the BCPI rep for South Beaverton.
Yeah, you will be. I'm sorry. I'm going to push it off into May because we had a very full schedule this week.
No problem.
Hey, David. David Sanders.
Hey, I'm Dave Sanders and I'm a police officer with the city. So glad to be here as your representative.
Great. And Casey?
Hi there, Casey Henebry. I'm a lieutenant with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue over at Station 66, Brockman Road.
Thank you very much for joining you, and we hope it's all quiet there.
Thank you.
And Elena, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Elena. I'm with the City of Beaverton in the Neighborhood and Public Engagement Program.
Thank you very much, Elena. Okay, so let's start with David, if you'd like to give us your update.
Yeah, things are opening up a little bit more. Ride-alongs are beginning again, which is nice. I just wanted to update you there. I know some people were asking. Our bike program is in full gear. We're getting more and more officers bike certified. That's kind of one of my roles this week and next week, is to kind of get people up to speed as events start opening up in the city, outdoor events, just to be a presence out there, make sure everyone's safe and things go smoothly. So you should see a lot more of us bumblebees out there riding around on bikes at different events. Let's see, in terms of, I guess, crime, one thing that I keep seeing reoccurring, and I think we're going to experience just a uptick in this as time goes on, is just scam calls via telephone. And a lot of these are, I know I've probably mentioned this before, but a lot of these are targeting the elderly. So for those elderly folks in your lives, might be good to just remind them not to be vulnerable to those. The majority of victims that I talk to always say that, you know, I knew better, I shouldn't have fallen for it, but they were so believable and such. So one of the last ones we addressed this last week was a bank called us saying that somebody had walked into the bank to withdraw some money, and they were on the phone, and they mentioned to the teller that that their son was kidnapped and they were getting money out to pay the kidnapper. So, and they left the bank, and so we weren't able to contact them before they did. Ended up contacting them a couple hours later. Turns out it was just a scam, but it was too late. They had already wired several $1,000s to overseas. And for whatever reason, these folks that do this are good at it. They say what they need to say to present themselves as trustworthy. It's pretty, and these folks that fall victim to these, they know better, and for whatever reason, they just kind of fell prey to it. So just a reminder, especially computer stuff, those emails, people try to they take over computers pretty easily if you allow them as well, giving them access, posing as, technical experts and such. So we see that a lot too. So telephone and computer, a lot of cyber crimes occurring right now. So just be cautious, I think, for all of us. Any questions anybody has?
Yeah,
Okay.
so does the bank typically contact you on a situation like that?
Banks do periodically when there just seems to be something really odd. And the bankers usually know what to look for. They know when somebody's pulling out certain denominations of money, and sometimes the tellers will ask them a little bit something about it, and the folks on the other end of the call always tell the victim, don't tell anyone about this, don't speak of this when you go to the bank, don't tell people why you're pulling this out and such. So it does seem very odd to a lot of tellers when people come into the bank for that. And sometimes it's to get money to deposit it into the Bitcoin machines. That's a popular scam. But
Okay.
People call us about various suspicious circumstances, but
But you don't always hear about things like that. I'm getting a ton of calls. The last couple of days, it just seems crazy. So I think a lot of times if you answer one, then it's like, oh, it's a real person. So then,
Officer Sanders, I'm wondering if, since you mentioned things are sort of opening back up, has the police department considered doing a presentation at the LC Stir Center to kind of inform a group of seniors about these kinds of things happening? I know that people know about it, but just to put some more information out there targeted directly to the senior population.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I can mention it to our community engagement team. That would be probably right down their alley as things open up more and more. I'm not sure if kind of senior centers and such are meeting to the same degree, but it's a good idea.
Well, thank you very much, David. Sorry, I almost went to the English way of saying things, but Officer Sanders, thank you so much for joining us. If there are any other questions. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Next month, I was thinking about doing just a quick presentation on kind of bike theft too. I mentioned this to you, Mike, but just an overview on kind of how to protect bikes. If anyone's interested in that, just a real quick kind of using what I've learned over the years, just how to keep bikes safe as we're bike commuting more and such. So
I've also heard there's also a lot going on with these electric scooters as well, because they're expensive, but they're also fast, so people can get away with it quite quickly. I heard there was an uptick in those as well. So
and it's always seasonal. So as the weather improves, just more cyclists are out there. Yeah.
Okay. Again, thank you very much, Officer Sanders.
You're welcome.
Next, Casey, if you'd like to present your information for us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. just like Officer Sanders talked about, things are opening up for us district-wide and station-wide here with COVID restrictions being lifted. And we're all really excited just to have more public engagement with folks and being able to allow people into the station. So just encouraging you as you're out, things aren't completely shut down anymore, and we're happy to have people around. So just wanted to pass that along. We're entering our busier season of the year right now as the drier weather happens, the days are longer. So our call volume is increasing, and we're getting all amped up for the wildland urban interface season for us here. As you guys remember, we've had some significant fires here in the last couple years, and we've really bolstered our training when it comes to the wildland urban interface, as well as trying to educate the public on ways that they can prepare for those type of events. So we've got kind of our program, the Ready, Set, Go program. And I'm not sure, I think Lieutenant Zahrowski spoke last meeting, so I'm not sure if he touched on any of these things. But as we start to see these significant events or dynamic weather events coming, wind events, those type of things, we're really encouraging our residents to be ready, start to have a evacuation plan, start listening to emergency services, whether it's news stations or tapping into either TVF&R.com, so that you can get information and be forewarned if we're getting set to evacuate. So that's kind of the ready stage. The set to evacuate is making sure that you have your emergency supplies, that you've got phone numbers, kits packed, and staying alert and still continuing to listen to those local media outlets, so that if we were to evacuate, that we're ready to go. And interesting fact that in the state of Oregon, the fire department doesn't have the authority to force people to evacuate in those situations. So all we can do is encourage and educate the residents of the dangers that are coming. Now, specific to our residential Beaverton area, right? Some of these wildland things don't necessarily apply, but there's some good basic awareness stuff. As we get drier, making sure that we're keeping those fuel loads clear of our homes, things like Arbor, other really dry fuels can catch. And if things like cigarettes or small warming fires were to get out of hand, those things can really quickly threaten a structure. So some of those same type of techniques that people would use out in the country are still great ways to look at how we would approach things here in the city as well. So that's kind of our little plug on that. In addition to that, we've got a lot of stuff going on with the district. We have what we call our Portland Metro Fire Camp coming up in July. And what that is it's a way to encourage young women in particular to look at career opportunities in the fire service. So if you know anybody between the ages of 16 and 22, they can go to portlandmetrofirecamp.com and apply for those camps. And it's a great exposure. It's a really empowering event for these young women. And it gives us a chance to kind of plug this wonderful career that we have. In addition to that, we have an academy going on right now. We just hired 25 people that will be hitting the line here in July. And after that, we have another academy coming up in the fall. Much like a lot of other civil service, we're going through a lot of attrition, a lot of retirements right now. And so we're really hiring at a fast rate and trying to recruit people into our profession. So I think that's about all I have for you. Any questions that anyone has for us?
Again, Casey, then, thank you very much for attending and for your update. Very informative. I appreciate it very much, and stay safe, and thank you for serving.
Thanks for having us. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Tualatin Parks and Rec contacted me and said they wouldn't be able to attend. They had a family emergency, so you're going to have to put up with me reading.
Hey, Elena, did you get the notice about in the chat about sending to Frosty the invite? You did. Okay, so you sent it to him. All right,
Okay.
good. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd already sent him an email, but he couldn't get on using that one either. It's the one that I used, so that's why I got Elena. Thank you for doing that. Let me just give you a quick overview of what's happening with Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec. They are hiring. We have lots of opportunities, especially for aquatics instructors, lifeguards, and gymnast teachers. So if anyone's an inspiring athlete and would like to become part of that team, please just let them know. Summer registration is open. It opens on Saturday, April 2nd, and the guides are in the brochures and the printed facilities. The spring and summer prep is underway. The staff are servicing all the athletic fields, inspecting the playgrounds, mowing and cleaning off the courts of debris. So there's a lot of work going on there. They're also working on trail cleaning for HMT. It's been completed, and the resurfacing and the soft trails in the North Forest complex is being packed with hard gravel. So with all this rainy weather we're having, that'll be good. You won't be slipping and sliding around. Tualatin Hills Nature Parks update. The second and hopefully the final sewer construction season at the nature parks will pick up again in mid-April. This will lead to a cascade of trail closures to accommodate the sewer works. So please check the website and the maps. Conestoga Rec and Aquatic Center pool renovation. The pool will reopen on Monday, April 4th. So we can all now enjoy going swimming again, which will be great. Expanding restroom access. The Tualatin Parks in Washington County were awarded the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Grant to install a total of 3 public restrooms within the Tualatin Parks and Recs. So they're going to be installing those. It includes Hazeldale Park, Schiffler Park, and Greenway Park. And Kennedy Park has been identified as a possible secondary alternative site. So that will help everyone. Free aquatics training. To meet the community needs for swim classes, the aquatic staff have been training lifeguards and junior guards in the winter. 46 lifeguard candidates and 17 junior guard students participated in the class. Currently for spring, 32 lifeguard candidates have been enrolled. So they're covering that need. RISE program offers youth volunteers. So anyone who wanted to volunteer to introduction to the park and recs, they can apply. Anyone over 13 or 13 and up. They can visit the website related to RISE if they're interested in that. Preschool registration is open, offers 9 months preschool without district throughout the district. Registration will open for families next school year, so sign up now. Egg hunt. Tualatin Park has a egg hunts available at Conestoga on the 9th of April, which I think that's already passed, and the 16th, which is already passed, so I missed that. Downtown parks, Beaverton Parks, and open space planning. Tualatin Park is partnering with the city of Beaverton to solicit input from people on what they want for downtown parks and open spaces. So if you're interested in that, they're looking for project staff, community events this spring and summer to share your feedback. So if you'd like to be part of that. I think that is it. Okay, and I won't ask for questions because I won't have a clue what to tell you. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. The city update. Elena, thank you.
Hi everyone. Sorry that there has been issues with all of the login stuff. I don't really know what's going on today, but the city does have a couple of news items. The first thing is April 2022 is Arbor Month in Beaverton. The proclamation recognizes the importance of trees and parks and encourages tree planting and care throughout Beaverton. The city maintains nearly 40,000 trees to enhance community beauty and improve the quality of our neighborhoods. Beaverton has been recognized for 28 years as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and this year the city will receive a Growth Award for the 18th year. The city recently partnered with Friends of Trees to plant approximately 1,150 native trees and shrubs along the Fano Creek Trail, and tree plantings approved by Tree Lists, the city's Street of Trees, and more resources are available to community members. And you can learn more at this link that I'm sending in the chat. And then shout out Highland NAC. They received the 2022 Oregon Urban and Community Forestry Organization Award. The Highland Neighborhood Association Committee was recognized for planting dozens of trees during volunteer-led planting events. Community members not only help plant trees where they live, but also learn about the importance of trees to the urban environment and build community as they work with their neighborhoods. Way to go, Highland NAC. The new website goes live in April. The city's new website with enhanced functionality, design, and organization launches this month. And I think it already launched, so you could definitely check it out at the Beaverton website. The redesigned site will improve the user experience for nearly 1 million annual visits to the site. The new site will better highlight timely and relevant information for community members with navigation that is intuitive and user-friendly. And you can learn more about city services, how your government works, our various departments, and all of the latest news at the link. And then lastly, Beaverton Voters Forum is April 28th. Join community members for an evening with the candidates running to represent you. This is a way to hear directly from the candidates for local office and get your questions answered. Candidates for Beaverton City Council Position 1, Position 2, Position 3, and Position 5 will be featured. The forum is April 28th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. So in exactly 1 week at the Patricia Research Center for the Arts located in downtown Beaverton. And for those planning to attend the forum in person, you could visit the website to reserve your free tickets. And then there is a venue website for safety regulations and requirements that include proof of vaccination testing, and other guidelines. And a recorded broadcast will be available in the days after the event online and on public access cable television. And the event is hosted by the BCCI. And that is everything from me.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions for the city?
Not a question, just a comment that I think as of today about the Voters Forum and the Research Center, masks are required, but no longer have to present proof of vaccine. So, but you still need a ticket.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, then, Frosty, I'm pleased that you were able to get in. I think we all had a little bit of fun with the link today.
Everybody did, so.
Well, some of us did.
Yeah.
I did for one. I couldn't get in and I was late, so.
It was really funny. I was able, when I tried it on my iPhone, it said Safari won't support or something, and then I was able to phone in. But the link that I think it was Francesca sent finally worked, but it literally took me, well, you can tell I started about 20 minutes after, so a good half hour. But anyway, BCCI, first off, Debbie, are you still a BCCI member as a, what do you call it?
At large, yes.
At large?
No. Yes, I'm at large, but I just started a 3-year at large term. So.
Okay, is that your second one or your first one?
It's my first. I've been on for 2 years, but it was just a 1-year appointment.
Okay.
And I was just,
If it comes down to you still wanting to participate and your terms were up, I would be happy to relinquish my primary role and be a backup. So if there's anybody else that would like to, you might be able to tell, this is my fourth shoulder surgery. Most importantly, my wife is having a C567 cervical fusion coming up Monday. And as we get older and older, the health, we're paying for the fun we had with all the orthopedic issues that we are dealing with right now. So, but anyway, it's not that difficult or time consuming, especially because there's still Zoom calls. But, and it's, to me, it's extremely important as Michael and I and others have found about the Cobb property, and Debbie and we found, and also Dave, that we found with the small park issues. It's important to keep up and just keep track of things. And I still believe Beaverton is a really great participatory form of government that allows the citizens to keep up. And so I really encourage anybody who is interested to give me a call.
So Frosty, David has volunteered to become our BCCI rep. It's just we haven't had time to formally vote him in yet.
Okay, and then
we didn't.
Yeah, I think between Debbie and I, you've got a good training
coverage. Yeah, thank you.
But anyway, as Elena, is it, was saying that we did talk about the tree project, and I can't thank Highland Hills enough. I'm still a member, and I would like to continue to be a member of the matching grant program. Even as an assistant, I could do that. Whoever is primary is the voting member. And so as Elena said, that we did discuss the tree project. And of course, the big thing is the voters forum. And you all have probably received this, and also through an email, this as well. And if no other reason, to have a good reason to go visit our great new Performance Arts Center. I have the pleasure of knowing Pat Reeser pretty well via Oregon State, and she's an amazing woman, and the facility is going to be worthwhile just to go in and visit. The other thing that's really, I think, significant, we spent quite a bit of time on the BCCI meeting on the South Cooper Mountain project, and there is a public hearing notice, and I'll show this to you, that is coming up on May 11th from the Planning Commission on housing option projects, comprehensive plans, amendment, development code, text amendment, and zoning map amendments. And this is all as a result of the state's, I believe it's 2001. It reminds me of Space Odyssey, if you're old enough to remember that. But 2001 bill that is Oregon's attempt to increase the housing options. And there's a lot of infill opportunities that are causing a lot of consternation with people. But the South Beaverton planning options were discussed at length. And it got to be really interesting because they had three options. The first option was option A, that had 63%, if I remember correctly, single family, and then maybe 20% a combination of single, multifamily, and then about 20% multifamily. Option B was almost straight across the board, a third, and then option C was maybe 20% single family, and the majority of them being multifamily. The problem I had with that is that they don't discuss the infrastructure necessary to support what I called, and they did not refute this, but low density of people, medium density of people, and high density of people. But they had no discussion or plans whatsoever of how do you adjust your infrastructure support, which means roads especially. And there was no comment about increasing roads. You know, Roy Rogers has done a 4-lane for a little bit north-south, but there's so much building going out there. And I'm really concerned about transportation issues, because they talked about busing and walking and biking. But have you been living in Oregon long enough, as I have, since 1944, it's not that easy, and especially in that kind of a geography, and that kind of topography of mountains and hills and stuff, because they had snow just recently. So anyway, that's something to keep a watch on. We did not have any grants at this last BCCI meeting, and I would encourage our NAC to get together. We had talked about doing grants with partnering with other NACs about a shredding event, since as a Beaverton Police Academy volunteer, a graduate and volunteer, I know the police academy is not planning on any shredding, so I think it may be left up to the neighborhoods, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't partner with a couple of other neighborhoods and have one for maybe a good part of the neighborhoods. If it's citywide, I will tell you, we needed a fairly large venue because the line of cars gets to be quite long. Let's see, what else was there? I think, oh, and then of course we've got voting coming up, and you've probably received your voter's pamphlet. And I think that's it. Thank you, Michael. I'm sorry for getting on late. I did try.
Thank you, Frosty. Any questions for Frosty for the BCCI? Just as a comment, we have been invited to join, I think it's Highland Hills shredding event. I will give you some more information about that at the end in our open forum. But yeah, I think that was a great idea. And there's also a fun run that we'll talk about later too. Okay, next on the list then, we open up to the City Council position 2, yes?
Michael, I'm so sorry. There was a, hold on, here it is. There was a fun run, you're absolutely right, that was discussed. Oh, here it is. It's a Height and Hawks fun run that is being planned for May 12th. So
yeah, we've already signed up for that through
yes.
Miles, so we'll talk about that.
Which is in our neighborhood. So if there's anything we can do to support that, sorry about that. I forgot.
No problem. Okay, so what we have is we have 10 minutes each, Kevin and Teresa. If one of you would like to pick to go first, I put them in order. So Kevin was going to go first. If you're happy with that, Teresa, we'll let him go first. Okay. So Kevin, thank you very much for attending, and we'd very much like to hear what you have to say to us.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And thank you all for having us tonight. I'm not going to take the full 10 minutes to speak. If I will leave some time for you all to ask questions or give some issues that are important to you that you want me to be thinking about too. So I am Kevin Teater. I am running for Beaverton City Council position 2. For the past 4 years, I've been the executive director of the Beaverton Downtown Association, which is a historic preservation and community development nonprofit in downtown Beaverton. I'm the only staff member, but we've got a team of about 40 or 50 consistently engaged volunteers. We plan events for downtown. We get historic preservation grants for downtown. We add murals and potted planters and try to do some safety improvements on the streets and sidewalks around that area. I've also been a Beaverton Planning Commissioner, so the points about the housing code updates are very important, and I would encourage you all to look at the conversations coming up with City Council and Planning Commission. I know the letter that was sent out recently to a lot of residents was kind of wordy and confusing and very legalistic, very technical. And at Planning Commission, we actually talked about that, and city staff were like, oh yeah, we had to say that because the state forced us to use those words. So know that it's okay to not fully understand all of the details. It's much easier to understand if we ask staff or come to a Planning Commission meeting. And even if you can't come, if you can write a letter, that's helpful too, because we do read those. So my background is in urban planning. It is in community visioning. It is in economic development. I've supported the business community in downtown through the pandemic and before the pandemic and as we emerge from the pandemic. And it's been a real journey. we've got a lot of immigrant-owned, refugee-owned businesses in downtown, a lot of diverse cultural businesses in downtown, and I've had the pleasure to be able to work very closely with each of them, helping them apply for grants throughout the pandemic or plan events and programs that can support them and help them stay in downtown. And we're very fortunate that the downtown community has continued to grow and survive, but now begin to thrive again throughout the pandemic. It's been a real challenge, but we've also had really great partners with City of Beaverton staff, city councilors who believe in this work, and it's been really special. I don't want my time on city council to be restricted to just focusing on downtown, though. There's much more to Beaverton than our downtown district. I'm a member of the Central Beaverton Neighborhood Association Committee, and I've been a board member of that team for almost 4 years now too. And we've been able to partner with the Highland NAC recently to do a tree planting in Evelyn Schiffler Park. I know we just mentioned the tree plantings along the Flano Creek Trail. Like, I love programs like that. And any of these programs that the neighborhood associations are trying to put on are a real gift and a real service to the community. So I see real value in our neighborhood association committees. I have really valued being a part of mine in the Central Beaverton Neighborhood Association Committee. And I want to be able to continue to foster the growth of the neighborhoods across the city. As far as supporters and endorsers, I'm supported by unions, environmental activists, business groups, the Beaverton Chamber, the Home Builders Association of Metropolitan Portland, Mayor Beatty, all of City Council minus position 2, which is the position I'm running for, local state reps, Juan Carlos Gonzalez, Metro Councilor. I've got pretty broad support and from people I really respect and have appreciated the opportunity to get to know. So I would love y'all's support. The voters pamphlet came out last week. If you have questions about any of it that came up, you can reach out to me personally on my website, but I'm also here. So if you got anything, you can feel free to ask it here and I'll do my best to answer. And if I don't have an answer, I can get back to you. But I'll just leave it at that. I am really grateful to be here. And I just want to make myself open and accessible throughout the campaign, but also if I'm elected, accessible and once I'm in office as well. Anybody have any questions or comments?
So Kevin, thanks for your presentation. What would that mean if you were elected? Do you need to discontinue your employment with the city? Or would you continue it in parallel? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. So the Beaverton Downtown Association is a separate nonprofit. We do receive grant funding from the city to be able to do programs, and some of that grant funding actually funds my salary. I am actually leaving that role as the executive director of the Beaverton Downtown Association. We've got the job application open, so if you know anybody who would make a good executive director, send them our way because it'll be open for probably a couple more weeks. But I am leaving that role, whether I'm in office or not. I've built a solid foundation that I'm very proud of, but I think the organization can benefit from some new ideas, a new style of leadership, new perspectives. And that's a similar approach that I'll take on city council too. Like when my time is up, like I want to be able to hand it off to somebody to be able to continue the work and build upon it. And Frosty, I see your hand.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Yeah, I'm unmuted. This would also be a question for Teresa. Having been a resident almost all but 9 months of my life in Oregon, I can remember when it used to be at least a fine when you littered. I'm totally disgusted what's happened to this state. And I probably add up most of you in equal number of years of residency here. And I'm also seeing, if you're part of Nextdoor, a dramatic increase in catalytic converters, cars being stolen, the rise in crime, a rise in major crimes in murders, primarily in Multnomah County and the Portland area. But this will be something I'll be asking the DAs as well. But it's got to stop, and we've got to turn that around. And it's not just a homeless problem. It's a drug and mental health problem. And I don't know if you know, I'm a pharmacist. I'm also retired military. And we never used to be put up with this stuff. I don't even know if you remember the name Tom McCall, but he's rolling over in his grave right now. He was the one that brought the very first bottle bill in the country. He made our beaches public. He was a great middle of the road governor. And it's just obscene what's happening to our state. And people that I have three very good friends who've changed their residency, two to Arizona, one to Idaho. And as you know, there's a desire of some, not who knows if this would ever happen, but the eastern part of the state would go to Idaho. And who knows, that might happen. But what are you going to do? And Teresa, what are you going to do? And the DAs, what are they going to do to stop this? It used to be a problem that you got fined if you littered. Now it's common.
Okay. So Kevin, if you'd like to answer it first, we'll pass that to Teresa later in her session, but we have maybe 1 or 2 minutes if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Yeah, thank you, Frosty. I am fairly new to Beaverton. I moved here 4 years ago, and I love Oregon. It's been a beautiful place. It's become such a great home for me. Like, I've got so much gratitude for this city. And it is a special place worth protecting. Like, I know Tom McCall was a Republican, and like Republicans and Democrats don't see eye to eye very much these days, but there's a lot of the shared value here and like wanting to have a clean city. You touched on a piece of it that's really important to me, and that's like social services, mental health support, addiction support, that address a lot of the root of some of these issues. City Council just Tuesday passed approval for a purchase of a property near 217 in Farmington that'll become a long-term shelter for our houseless neighbors. And that'll include some social services support for them. It's expensive. It's part of the puzzle. The puzzle is much larger, but we need to at least say, hey, we need to provide a space so that people don't need to be on our streets, and so that they've got a pathway to get back on their feet and into stable housing. We also need to be pairing that with like community programs that can help keep our streets clean. I know at the Beaverton Downtown Association, we've done some community cleanups, partnering with some downtown businesses to be able to do that, and community volunteers. And that's been good for our downtown district. But if the rest of the city's seeing challenges there too, like, we need to see who our partners can be to help us do really great work in that.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. To keep it fair for Teresa, I'm going to stop you there. If we have time at the end, we'll be able to come back to that. But thank you very much, Kevin, for sharing those things. Teresa, would you like to tell your story, please?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. For those that missed my earlier hello, my name is Teresa Payne. I live in the Denny-Whitford, Raleigh West, and I'm running for Beaverton City Council to be a part of the change that I want to see. I firmly believe that together we can make a difference to build a community that is strong, where everyone can live and thrive. I have been a part of several parts of Beaverton, different facets: art and culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion, housing, well, my civic engagement specifically, and I call it my public service, from leadership programs like BOLD, the Beaverton Organizing Leadership and Development Program, a collaboration between the City of Beaverton and Unite Oregon, the Washington County Civic Leaders Program through Adelante Mujeres, and something that many more people may be familiar with here on this Zoom, Leadership Beaverton, through the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce. The class that never quite finished. We started in 2019 and we were supposed to end in 2020, but didn't quite get there. Mike knows what I'm talking about. We were part of the same Leadership Beaverton class. Additionally, I have been appointed to numerous city and county positions, such as the Diversity Advisory Board, Housing Technical Advisory Group. I sit on there with Lisa. I think she's on the Zoom call this evening. Cultural Coalition of Washington County, Oregon Health Equity Alliance, Community Action Team, Home Plate Youth Services, that oversees affordable homes, especially for youth branching out, getting their first apartment, and just who are houseless teens age 12 all the way up to 24, and being on the budget committee this year. Sorry, my earpiece is acting up. And I have also been a part of important Beaverton programs and reports, including the Beaverton Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Plan, the 2019 update, in addition to the 2021 annual report, and the Beaverton 5-year Housing Action Plan 2019 through 2024. If you look at the very cover of that plan, I'm on the cover of it, laughing with a member of the Committee for Aging, or our, well, our Age Before Beauty, but they are beautiful group. I'm very proud to be handpicked by the current sitting city councilor for position 2, Laura Mitchell, to succeed her. And I'm endorsed by people who know Beaverton well. Former Oregon State Senator Mark Hass, former city councilors Kate Arnold, Mark Fagan, and many others, including the Beaverton Police Association. I am also endorsed by the Beaverton Area Chamber of Commerce. And I firmly believe that Beaverton must begin to start to look like the representation we want to see. I'm very proud to be a renter here in Beaverton. I am a lifelong renter, as I sometimes say. I know some people can relate to me on that. So being able to speak up for people who don't often have a voice at the table. And I did listen into your meeting from last month. Lisa was a huge advocate for you guys on HTAG. If you knew how fiercely she discussed the House Bill 2001, I just wanted to bring a little bit of that conversation. So I know Frosty, from listening into the Zoom last month, you had mentioned a bit about that you know. So that property, if someone were to tear down their home and build a triplex, duplex, whatever there was room for, the person who owns that land would own the building and the land, obviously, and it would be their responsibility or desire to make that into an affordable housing unit or not. So the idea is to have more affordable homes, but that may or may not be what ends up happening, right? You have to hope that people will be fair and make it affordable housing for all, because that is the intention, but it is up to the individual homeowner, property owner, to make that happen. At this time, there are no incentives, tax incentives or otherwise, for homeowners or builders to do that. It's going to be an expensive project. And unless you are a retired person with the funds to do that and tear down your home, build a quadplex, and get out of Dodge so you don't have to hear your neighbors complain, it doesn't sound like a sexy idea for people. But as we have had several conversations within the city of Beaverton, we know that more housing is needed. And it is a state decision. So we need to, as a city, come up with our own solution before the state gives it to us. And it is going to be discussed this calendar year. It will be decided, I assure you, before Kevin or I start on January 1, 2023. But I just wanted to bring that to the attention of you all, because I know it was a part of the heated discussion last month, and it was brought to my attention to discuss it briefly here today. Frosty, I want to briefly answer your question. You started out by saying you're disgusted by the litter. I'm right there with you. I know I was doing some door knocking and I saw a very lovely mom and her toddler son going around with a little pincher picker-upper and a bucket picking up some litter. And I was like, see, that's the type of mutual aid we need. That if a bunch of people did that on a Saturday and came together with that mutual aid to continue to make our city a beautiful place, that is what we want to see, respectively, with some of the litter and things that go on. We have to look at, yes, litter, bigger things that were mentioned, crime, public safety, once again, is very important to me as a single gal living in Beaverton. I certainly don't want to get kidnapped on an evening walk like anyone else. And so I, even as a person on a walk on the trails, tend to look over my shoulder, not because I'm scared, but as a woman, I just have certain tendencies to protect myself at all times. Not because I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood, but it's just, I don't know, a sense of street sense my father taught me that I just carry with me. Public safety as we are having continued conversations around the new public safety center, around the new long-term shelter that is going to be built, as Kevin said, if you listen to the city council meeting on Tuesday or not, one point that I want to reiterate that Councilor Laura Mitchell said is that it is extremely important and critical to have this shelter. It has been a need in our community for a long time. We do see a trickle from Multnomah County coming into the city of Beaverton. It is no longer just a Multnomah County problem of crime, of people who are experiencing housing insecurity either. I'm very fortunate to have a boyfriend who had a career in mental health. He was a counselor for a nonprofit organization that was also a methadone clinic in Portland. And so I've had really lengthy conversations with him about public safety, about mental health, about addiction, and how can we meet people where they're at in order to help them, and to have conversations and say, hey man, I saw you littered near a trash can. Mind picking that up? No, okay, I'll pick it up. But we live here together. Let's be a part of the change we want to see, right? And me saying that as a loving community member, but also understanding that mutual aid that I mentioned previously, that sometimes it's just community coming together and doing an action out of love, and it will be a thing that people see and want to continue to do. So I hope I answered that question, Frosty, briefly. It is a simple question, but certainly a lot of avenues to be taken in that conversation. And with that, Chair Mike, how much time do I have left?
We have 1 minute left for questions if you are finished.
Yes, I yield my time back to you. So lightning round of one question and potentially 30-second answer.
Okay, anyone have a 30-minute question, 30-second question? Because I see Kevin and Brian are already here and they don't want their time stolen. So yes, Debbie.
Not a question so much as a comment in terms of lived in Beaverton for almost 40 years. Actually had a car stolen several years ago. So, you know, to say things are worse, yeah, they're worse, but I think, you know, public safety and all of that is, and I'm not sure in terms of asking city council candidates what they're going to do about it. I guess one comment that I would make is, I know there used to be a neighborhood watch program that was pretty active, not only in Beaverton, but in, you know, several cities. And from what I understand, it's inactive. And so wondering if the police department or city leadership would consider sort of reactivating a program like Neighborhood Watch. I think, you know, a lot of what goes on Nextdoor is, oh, somebody's suspicious, this, that, the other thing. And it seems like maybe, you know, coordinating it through the neighborhood association program, or at least, you know, having it be a seed program within the NAC program, through the city, through the police department. Kind of going to what Teresa was saying about, you know, we're neighbors, let's take care of each other instead of let's police each other in that respect. So that's my comment.
Okay, so we are just about out of time. Again, Teresa, thank you very much. If we have time at the end, we'll come back and give some more time for questions. And again, as both candidates said, if you have any other questions or anything you want to talk to them, please get a hold of them and talk to them directly. I do remember you, Teresa. I know you're very compassionate about what you do. Kevin, thank you for showing your passion for this city, and we thank you very much for coming and spending that. And we wish you both the best in this upcoming election.
Thank you for having us.
One comment, Kevin, if I can. I feel very strongly about this because I've mentioned it a couple of times, both to Miles. I think that your comment about we have to say this legalese because of the legalese people, The trouble is the people that really want to know aren't legal. They really need to understand. So somewhere we have to come to a common ground of this is us explaining what we're trying to do in terms of people can understand, instead of making it so highfalutin. Nobody can understand what's going on, because I don't think that helps any of the communities. So I think as we can bear that in mind as we continue to move forward, you get people on board if they actually understand what you're trying to achieve, rather than legalese it so people can't take them to court. You know, we really want to know what's going on as well, and we lose that. But thank you again. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree.
Thank you very much. Anyway, well, thank you, Kevin and Brian, for joining us. And I'd like to go to Kevin first. You're first on the list. I think we have 15 minutes, close to 15 minutes assigned for both of you. If you would like to start, Kevin, and leave some time for questions.
That's great. So 15 for both. So maybe I'll take about 5 and leave some time for questions. Does that sound good, Mike?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, first, thank you all for having me here and for letting me take some of your evening time and your meeting time. My name is Kevin Barton. I am the district attorney here in Washington County. I've served in the Washington County DA's office now for about 15 years, the last 4 of which as your elected DA. And my mission is really simple. It's to keep Washington County safe. I was elected in 2018, and I ran on a platform of prosecuting criminals, protecting victims, and pursuing responsible reforms. And in the last 4 years, that's exactly what I've done. And I'm very proud to say that Washington County is the safest large county in Oregon. Our combined property and violent crime statistics show that we are 30% lower than the state average when it comes to crime, and we're a whopping 50% lower than Portland. And a lot of that's because of the hard work over the last 4 years and beyond by lots of people, not just me. The DA operates within an ecosystem of criminal justice leaders and agencies, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done. Some key accomplishments we've done over the last 4 years, in addition to keeping people safe, we have instituted things to improve our criminal justice system. Things like Oregon's first and only county-based hate crimes team, adding new specialty and treatment courts to address root causes of crime, building a new family peace center to help children and adult victims of domestic violence and child abuse recover from some of that trauma, and working better and in better collaboration with community partners throughout all of Washington County to increase the transparency and everyone's awareness of what the DA does. The DA does not work in isolation. You cannot do this job on your own. And I'm really proud of the people who are endorsing me in my re-election. And my endorsements include every single police chief in the county, including the police chief in Beaverton. It includes our elected sheriff, Pat Garrett. It includes every single police officers association in the county, the rank and file police officers, 11 current and former mayors throughout the county, prominent Democrats and prominent Republicans. So Republicans would be people like our 2 Republican county commissioners, Roy Rogers and Jerry Willey. And Democrats would be people like prominent legislators like Susan McLean or former Governor Kulongoski. Business leaders, Tim Boyle, a major employer, Columbia Sportswear, is an endorser, and Pat Reeser. And of course, everyone in Beaverton knows Pat Reeser and the Reeser family because of her wonderful gift to the city with the new Performing Arts Center and the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. 20 elected DAs throughout the state have endorsed me, along with 2 former United States attorneys, and including the Pamplin editorial board, who publishes all the Pamplin newspapers throughout the county, just endorsed me. So I mention that because, you know, you have lots of people talking to you and telling you what they think and what they do. And I'm very proud of what we've done and the actions that we've done to keep our county safe. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about my opponent. He and I have debated and gone back and forth and seen each other at countless Zoom meetings. So what I think I'll do is I'll say, if there's things he says about me, then I'd love the opportunity to answer those, but I'm not going to spend time addressing those now, other than to say I'd love to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. So the floor is open. Anyone have any questions for Kevin Barton? None at all.
I guess that means I did a good job, right?
I have sort of a general question. Is the district attorney's office a partisan office?
No, ma'am. In fact, Oregon is unique, different than other states. And Oregon specifically has said that the district attorney's office is not a partisan office. So you do not run as a Democrat or a Republican. Just like a judge does not run as a Democrat or Republican. You can be a Democrat or Republican. I am not registered either way. I once was a Republican. I left the party when Donald Trump was running, and I don't agree with either party entirely. I'm endorsed by both Republicans and Democrats. And I think both Republicans and Democrats have one thing in common. They don't want their cars stolen and they like their catalytic converters.
So anyone else have a question?
So I guess that brings a follow-up question. As district attorney, what will you do to curb the theft of catalytic converters in Washington County?
Absolutely. So I believe that we're seeing an increase in property crime because of a number of factors. So I can tell you it's very rare to have a single cause a single answer that addresses something. Usually it's a multitude of factors that we're dealing with. And when it comes to property crime, there's really three big things that I see us dealing with. The first is rising addiction. A number of people who commit property crime are dealing with addiction. And so we have many specialty and treatment courts that try to address that. Also supportive of the county's new Center for Addiction Triage and Treatment to try and address addiction before a crime happens. The second major factor that we see is diminished resources. We have the second smallest jail per capita in Washington County in the entire state. And that means that when the police catch someone stealing your catalytic converter, there's often not enough room at the jail to incarcerate them, to lodge them. So we need a bigger jail. Our jail was built over 20 years ago when the county was 2/3 of its current size. The people in the jail now belong in the jail. Trust me, if you saw a list of who's in the jail, you would agree. And even the sheriff and I have talked about this to countless community groups. The county's working at building or a plan to build a bigger jail. But until that happens, we'll be struggling because of the lack of resources in our current capacity. And finally, Portland. We are seeing an influx of crime from Portland. For example, Portland criminals, so people who live in Portland but commit a crime in Washington County, we've seen an 85% increase of those criminals committing crimes in Washington County in the last 3 years, breaking into cars, a 139% increase for firearms offenses, and similar increases for burglaries and robberies. Just a month ago or so in Beaverton, there was a truck that was stopped that had over 200 stolen catalytic converters on it. They're taking it out of Washington County and selling it for the parts. So I think addressing those three issues is the best way to address rising property crime in the county.
Okay. Well, I have one. Okay, sorry. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess this question would be for both candidates, but can you just give a definition of justice?
Justice is doing the right thing for the right reason. It's following the law and it's keeping people safe.
Okay. Well, we'll let Brian answer it on his time, but I'm going to ask you a question. So having been the DA for 4 years, what one or two or three things do you feel that if you were re-elected for another 4 years, what would you want to achieve by the time you get to the end of your second term?
I'd say there's two things that jump out at me. First and always, it's keeping our county safe. I think we are at a pivotal moment when it comes to criminal justice issues. We've seen policies that have failed quite dramatically and tragically in neighboring Portland. And I think my opponent will bring us closer to what we've seen in Portland. And I think that that's a concern. Things like defunding police, abolishing prisons, defunding our public safety system. Those are the reasons why every police chief and the sheriff have supported me over my opponent. So I think pushing back against that extremism and pushing back against that type of an ideology, I think is an important thing over the next 4 years. And secondly, there's a project I've been working on that I want to continue working on, and that is the building of our Family Peace Center of Washington County. That's the center that's going to provide additional resources for children and young adults dealing with what are called adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, if any of you have heard of that phrase before. Essentially, it means that the more trauma that young adults have in their earlier years, the higher the likelihood that they'll be dealing with things like homelessness and joblessness and addiction and criminal behavior in their later years. And I think this new Family Peace Center, which the legislature gave us funding last summer for about $6.5 million, I was very proud to have led that effort. That new Family Peace Center, I think, will pay dividends and be a form of what I call transformational criminal justice reform, because hopefully it'll mean we see less people who are victims of crime coming to the DA's office.
Okay, thank you. That almost covers your time. Is there any other questions before we move on and give Brian Decker a chance to speak?
Follow up to what he just was saying. Is there a town within Washington County, and we're in Beaverton, obviously, that has defunded their police or reduced their police budget?
Great question. So the way police is funded is the cities fund the local police department, and the county funds the county sheriff's office, which serves the entire county. I'm not aware of any city or jurisdiction in Washington County that has gone down that road. I do know that Portland quite infamously defunded the Portland Police Bureau in 2020 when they reduced or eliminated the gun violence response team, which created some significant challenges, and they had to come back and redo that. So we haven't had explicit defunding in Washington County. We have had people calling for explicit defunding, and my opponent is one of those people. He started a nonprofit in 2020 and was the president, and the mission statement of the nonprofit is to defund police, prisons, and prosecutors. And that actually is one of the things the pamphlet editorial board noted when they made the decision not to endorse him. So there are people calling.
I'm going to stop you though, because you implied that the increase in crime in Washington County could be attributed to defunding the police. And we've seen crime go up, but not because police departments were defunded within the county. So,
well, no,
that was where my question was coming from. So
no, I'm sorry not to have understood your question. So there's a couple things going on there. One, the crime that we're seeing from Portland is a direct result of the lack of prosecution and police activity in Portland. So for example, the prosecution of drug and property crimes in the last 7 years in Portland has declined by 90%. Portland has stopped prosecuting and stopped arresting, and we're seeing the influx of that. No differently than if your neighbor stopped taking care of their home, it would impact what's happening in your property value because it's immediately next door. So that defunding has absolutely had an impact on Washington County. The second issue is the failure to maintain. So it's not explicit defunding, it's soft defunding. If you don't adequately resource a public safety system and provide additional resources as the population grows, such as our county jail, not growing in the last 25 years, then even though you're not taking away, by not adding as the needs increase, it's having the same effect as defunding. So those are the two things that I see being major challenges to crime in the county. Thanks for the question, ma'am.
Okay, well, thank you. And we will call it there. And thank you, Brian, for waiting. And I'll let you have your opportunity now to share your views with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I live in Beaverton. I live actually just down Sorrento in the Highland neighborhood. So I'm really happy to be joining you tonight. My daughter is in first grade at Vose. My mom lives over in the Vose neighborhood and watches her after school. I know what a great place Beaverton is to live, and I want to make sure that our community is the best community it can be. I've been a federal prosecutor, an assistant United States attorney during the Obama administration, and I have been a public defender for 4.5 years here in Washington County, which is to say I've been a lawyer who's worked on both sides of the criminal justice system. The reason I'm running for district attorney is because I believe we need a change. I've seen real problems in our county. Gun crime is up. Community trust in our public safety system is down. We are not doing enough to address homelessness and addiction, and victims and survivors aren't getting the support that they need. because of the different sides of the system that I've worked on, I am able to see the way that the criminal justice system works and the fixes that it needs here in Washington County from many different perspectives. I volunteered to represent survivors of domestic violence seeking restraining orders. I volunteered to represent detainees at Guantanamo Bay back in the day. As public defender, I helped poor adults and children who are accused of crimes get access to justice, navigate the court system, and protect their constitutional rights. And as a federal prosecutor, I took on crimes like human trafficking, gun trafficking, destroying natural resources. And what I learned is that prosecutors, district attorneys in particular, wield an immense power and an immense responsibility to make the decisions that guide the outcomes of cases in the criminal justice system. And that responsibility, that discretion, can help or it can harm safety and justice in the community. Here's my priorities. Number one, prioritizing prevention. Addiction, mental illness, homelessness, poverty more broadly, these are primary drivers of crime. These drive people into the criminal justice system, and smart public safety policy means preventing crimes before they occur. And it means rehabilitating people away from criminal behavior so that we don't have them coming back through the system again and again. Serving victims. I know that people who have been harmed by crime deserve a voice in the criminal justice system, no matter who they are, no matter what their background is, no matter what their wishes are, they deserve to have a voice. Ensuring justice, equal justice for all. I will enforce the highest ethical standards in our office, and I will address racial discrimination and ensure that everyone is treated equally. And real public safety and accountability. No one should get special treatment, and no one is above the law. Kevin Barton has had a shot at being district attorney, and I believe that he's failed along each of these metrics. And one major example that I think fails in each of these, in all four of those ways, is this recent case that you may have read about a serial sexual abuser at Coffee Creek Women's Prison, a nurse who is employed there, who sexually assaulted dozens of women. And the case was presented to the Washington County District Attorney's Office for prosecution, and they declined to prosecute this man. And the reason that they gave was that there was insufficient evidence, and what they meant when they said there was insufficient evidence is they didn't think that the women were credible. They didn't think that the women who were reporting, all of these women who were reporting what this man did to them, could be believed because they were felons, because they had criminal records, because they were messy victims. And so they decided not to prosecute this case. And it's not that unusual for a district attorney's office to decide not to prosecute a case when they think there's insufficient evidence. But what is unusual is for the federal prosecutors to then turn around and charge the guy, which is what happened in this case. The U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division came and charged this prison nurse last month for a series of sexual assaults at Coffee Creek Women's Prison. That answered the question of who would believe these people. Those kind of decisions are not the decisions that I would be making as district attorney. I will be upholding principles of justice and safety. Those are the two guiding stars of the duty of the district attorney. And I believe it is a sacred and important and responsible duty, one that is too important to be playing around with, too important to be playing games with. I know that this change that I'm talking about is not something that I can make happen alone. And that's why I pledged to be a collaborative leader. I know that there are communities that experience more harm than others. And I'm talking about harm from crime and harm from the criminal justice system. Some communities experience it more than others. Black and brown folks, people with disabilities, LGBTQ+ folks experience this harm more than others. And that's why I will engage with community and listen to advice on how to get things done. I'm proud to have endorsements from community groups across Washington County, groups like Latino Network and ANO, the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon, groups like Imagine Black, groups like the Beaverton Education Association, which is full of educators who know that there's a link between the interests of education, the interests of students, and the interests of teachers and the criminal justice system. They want to interrupt the school to prison pipeline. I'm proud to have the support of Pro-Choice Oregon, which I've heard my opponent say that he doesn't understand what Pro-Choice Oregon has to do with a district attorney, but if he would get out and talk to people in the community, he might know that women seeking to exercise their constitutional right to reproductive health care are facing actual violence in our community. In Beaverton, threats of violence at the Planned Parenthood in downtown Beaverton. The people in our community get to say that they have a stake in the district attorney's office. The district attorney doesn't get to decide who is his constituency, the community does. I am also proud to have the support of Democrats and Republicans, of members of law enforcement, of business leaders, of community leaders from across the county, like our mayor, Lacey Beatty, and city councilors and school board members and legislators and community leaders like Maria Caballero Rubio of Centro Cultural. We will collaborate together to make the system that we want. We will collaborate together to build a system with true justice and real safety that works for everyone and that moves our community forward.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Are you open? Are you finished and you'd like questions now?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'd love to respond to some of the things my opponent said about me, if that counts for question time, but I'm also happy to answer all sorts of questions. So.
David Sanders asked a question. If you need him to repeat it, I'll ask him to repeat it for you.
Oh, what does justice mean to me? Did I have that right? Yeah. Justice is pretty important to me. I mean, it's so important that it is hard to define. I'm like, I want to Google a dictionary definition, but it's just so essential to what it means. I worked as an assistant United States attorney. I worked in the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice has this seal. You've probably seen it. It has an eagle on it, and it has the motto of the Department of Justice in Latin, which I'm not going to try to pronounce. But what it means in English is appearing on behalf of justice. And it says that because the Department of Justice is full of lawyers, prosecutors in particular. And unlike most lawyers who go into court and appear on behalf of a person or on behalf of a group of people, prosecutors don't do that. And I've heard some prosecutors say that what they're doing is they're appearing on behalf of all the people, on behalf of the whole community, and that's close to it, but it's still not quite right. What you're doing as a prosecutor is appearing on behalf of justice, on behalf of the principle of justice itself. To go into court and to stand up and say, I'm going to make sure that everything that we do in this courtroom is right, is just for the victim, for the defendant, for the jury, for the whole community outside the courtroom. I'm going to make sure that what we're doing is right. We're not going to play games in here. We're certainly not going to tweak in here. We're going to do things the right way. That's what justice means to me.
Okay. Thank you, David. Did that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We have 2 more minutes.
Yeah, I have my hands up.
Okay, sorry.
Brian and Kevin, I retired Army as a pharmacy officer. You're an officer first, and then whatever your specialty is second. And as a young captain, I was given the thrill of being Perry Mason. I was a prosecuting attorney up at Madigan Army Medical Center for an AWOL case during Vietnam, and ended up winning, thanks to a young second lieutenant who came from one of the Ivy League schools that was my second. I also have a nephew who's a police officer in Hillsborough, and a very good friend, longtime friend of mine, whose son is a police officer in Southeast Poland, who just was promoted to detective, I think, last year. So I have a very good handle on what's going on. And I'm not going to ask you this question. I'm going to tell you, because you already know this. Your number one responsibility is what? Protecting everybody, regardless of skin color, sexual orientation, whatever. And this last several years, with Antifa in Portland, you've forgotten that. You as a general prosecutors throughout, particularly in Multnomah County and Portland. I've seen landmarks destroyed that my grandfather, who was here in the early 1900s, and nothing's been done to them. So your responsibility is, I'm so frustrated that, Brian, especially with I'm not quite even sure I understand where you're going from, because if you don't protect the victims, you're not doing your job. And it's so frustrating to see what's happened to this state. And Kevin's absolutely right, and I'm sure you would come up with the same statistics. We're seeing increased crime in Washington County because of the lack of enforcement and the squishiness of Multnomah County and Portland. It bleeds over. Try doing what they do in Portland out in Eastern Oregon. And I know this isn't something in Oregon, but how does a mall shooter get out on bail of $25,000 back in the East Coast? I don't understand that. And anytime you talk about the squishiness that anybody who's in this job of protecting the public, number one priority, I don't see how you can, and I'll leave this, give you a couple minutes or whatever you want to, however you want to respond. Your number one priority is to protect us. And I don't know what your, when you talk about Coffee Creek, I actually served people in the Multnomah County prisons, Coffee Creek, and the state through home IV therapy because they were spending way too much money taking people in emergency rooms. So I understand what goes on in the prisons around here too. I don't know if you had the background or if you're intimately involved to make those statements that you did about Coffee Creek, because I am a volunteer, by the way, a certified counselor for McLaren. And I've sat with those kids and I know their backgrounds and I try to mentor them. But you don't know the whole story sometimes. And to make some of the statements, what was your basis of making those statements? How involved were you in that case to make that statement?
Yeah, I appreciate that. You don't have to take my word for it. There's a person who was intimately involved named Michelle Burrows, who was the lawyer hired by several of these women who were harmed at Coffee Creek. And she recently wrote an op-ed that is in the Pamphlet papers. I think it came out the same day as that editorial, talking about her experience with Kevin Barton's district attorney's office and the way that the evidence was brought to them, the exact same evidence that the feds had and took and ran with, and that the district attorney's office decided not to. And what the deputy district attorney from Kevin Barton's office did in explaining this when going on OPB was say that these women were the perfect victims because nobody would believe them. And that was the basis for their decision that there was insufficient evidence, that nobody would believe them. They had the exact same evidence that going forward the federal government had to go prosecute this crime. I don't know if I don't know honestly if you're saying that I misunderstood it, but the feds understood it when they decided to prosecute it, or if Kevin Barton understood it when he decided not to prosecute it.
So what's the result of the trial?
I'd like to jump in and answer
it's scheduled for May 17th, which is election day.
We'll find
Sounds like
out
it's really
then.
going to happen that soon. But
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Comer, I'd like to answer that question too. Mr. Decker is 100% flat out wrong with what he says about that. So first of all, this woman that he mentioned, Michelle Burrows, she's the attorney who's filed a lawsuit. She's also a supporter of Mr. Decker's campaign and a vocal advocate for Mr. Decker. She's not a neutral source of information. In 2018,
this is why, by the way.
One at a time, Brian.
Yes.
Let him finish.
Yeah.
You can respond.
Kevin, you interrupted me. You interrupted me when I was speaking. This is why she's supporting me.
Okay.
All right.
So
I'd
we're
like
going to
to-
run out of time. So I'm going to let Kevin, if you can answer it as concisely as you can. I just want to give Lisa, if you can ask your question in 2 seconds, but Kevin, if you can finish this just quickly and then we'll wrap it up.
My opponent has said that the reason the U.S. Attorney's Office filed charges is they had the same evidence we did. In 2018, we reviewed a case and we didn't have enough evidence to file charges. And that's unfortunate. I wish we could have, but we didn't have the evidence to file charges. After 2018, 2 important things happened. There was an FBI investigation that occurred, and the suspect gave deposition testimony. 3 years later, after that FBI investigation finished, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed charges with different and additional evidence than what we had. I talked to the U.S. Attorney's Office about their case, and they told me they would not have been able to file charges with the same evidence we did in 2018, which is why there was a subsequent FBI investigation. I'm glad they can file charges. Good for them. But to say that we didn't file charges because we don't believe women, that's a flat out falsehood. And I completely reject that.
Okay.
They didn't even talk to the women. They didn't go interview the women.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Please, as a chair, I just want to give Lisa, if you can ask a quick question, because we've run over time and everyone knows I don't like to do that but I think this is important for us to finish.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my question may not be easy to give the shortest answer to, Brian, but I would love to just hear if you could help provide a little bit of deeper insight into the phrase defund the police. I believe personally that phrase is used to rile up groups of people who have concerns about safety. I've got a lot of concerns about safety. I'm 30 weeks pregnant today. I have a 4-year-old. Safety is very important. Thanks, Frosty. But I don't really agree with the way that phrase is used a lot, and I think it's often deeply misunderstood. So I'd love it if you could just share, I guess, very briefly, but what does it really mean, and what does it mean to you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience too, is this phrase is used as a bit of a boogeyman. I'll tell you why I got involved in an organization that Kevin Barton has pulled quotes out of context from and suggests that that's my position. My position is, I think we need funding for police. I think we need police to be able to do essential police services like investigate and solve crimes and respond to violent emergencies. Those are the things that only police can do, and we need them to be able to do them. You can read more about my position in your voters pamphlet guide. I got it in my mailbox today. Your mailboxes are not that far away from mine, so you probably got it. But I wrote about the reasons I support the Enhanced Sheriff's Patrol District because of the funding that we need for police to do things. What I don't agree with is taking funding away from other programs that we need to keep us safe in society and throwing it all into the police and saying the police is the only thing that we're going to use. The prosecution is the only thing that we're going to use to keep us safe. There are other things that we need to be doing to keep us safe. We need treatment programs. We need to get out in front of addiction and mental illness. We need housing. We need education. We need job training, things that are going to prevent crime in the first place. And what I have advocated against again and again over the last few years is the way Kevin Barton has clamored for more money to bloat his office's budget by 29%, to take $10.6 million out of our county's general fund, which is almost exactly the cut that we had to Housing, Health, and Human Services in the last budget year, so that he could increase the prosecution of youth as juvenile delinquents, the rate at which they're prosecuted as juvenile delinquents, by 53% in his time in office, so that he could make us the most carceral, the most punitive county in the state. We send more people to Oregon's prisons for more years than any other county in the state. We didn't used to be that way, but we got there under Kevin Barton, and he doesn't think it is a problem. He calls himself a responsible reformer, but he does not think it's a problem that we send more people to Oregon's prisons for more years than any other county.
Okay.
He's not going to change anything.
So to all of you, thank you, Brian, for your response. And Kevin, I would love to give both of you some more time to respond to these. I do not want to be biased one way or the other, but we have run out of time, and I have two things I've got to.
Mike, Kevin deserves a response, be able to respond to that.
Can you do it in a couple of minutes, Kevin?
It's a late evening for everyone. I don't want to make this go any longer. Mr. Decker and I very firmly disagree on these issues. I believe we are a safe county because we have struck the right balance. There are people who need to and deserve to go to prison. There are people who don't need and don't deserve to go to prison, and that's why we have so many specialty and treatment courts for them. Some of the accusations that have flown, that we somehow failed by not filing charges in a particular case 4 years ago, that is the difficult decision a DA's office sometimes needs to make. And you need a DA who has the trust and the experience to make those difficult decisions. I wish we could have filed charges against that man who's now accused in the federal court of hurting those women in Coffee Creek. And if we had the FBI investigation that the U.S. Attorney's Office has today, then perhaps we would have been able to. Our juvenile incarceration rate has not increased, as Mr. Decker claims. In fact, roughly 8 out of every 10 juveniles that come into the system are diverted, which means they don't get formally charged with crimes. So we provide, I think, a good, comprehensive service for the community, and we're a safe community because of it. You can go to my website and read more, and I'm happy to answer any questions as anyone has. You're welcome to email me or reach out to me, but thank you for your time.
I thank you.
I'll just say I'm going over to West Slope NAC now. I think Kevin Barton is too. Anybody who wants to see more answers to more questions can come join us.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming and for putting a case in. Thank you, Kevin and Teresa. We really appreciate it. We wish you very well in the election. It's a shame that only one person can win, but who knows? Maybe they'll increase it, and you can both serve your community too. I have two very simple things, and again, thank you. If those that need to move on to another meeting, please feel free. I just have a couple of things I wanted to talk about. The first one is that I wanted just to make everyone aware of the Height and Hawk Fun Run. It is something that Kristal has brought up. Miles has actually paid the funding for the ability to do the fun run. So it's not coming out of the NAC fund, it's coming out of the neighborhood fund as a whole. If we are looking for volunteers, if you want to volunteer for the day, during the day, they are going to have a booth, and it will be a great opportunity for us to get the message out to the community of here are two NACs, the Heighton NAC and the South Beaverton NAC, that would like to be involved in getting more people to be involved in their community. So anyone who has any interest in that, Kristal, I'll send the information out after this meeting, but if you can contact Kristal direct. I'm actually traveling to DC to look after grandkids for a couple of weeks, so I won't be able to attend, but I know Kristal will be able to point you in the right direction. The second piece is that we do have Connette from the Highland NAC did a shredding event a year and a half ago. She's planning to do one this fall. And I know we've been talking about doing one for a long time, and because of COVID and the busy schedules that everyone had, we haven't done that. So I would like to suggest, and we can talk about it at the next meeting, to join that effort and become part of that shredding event with them for the volunteer hours. So hopefully
you have a date, Mike?
They haven't got one yet, but we can work that together.
Good.
So they've invited 2 other NACs to join them. So it looks like it could be a 4 NAC event, which I think will be very good for us.
And you said fall, right?
It's in the fall, yes.
Okay.
So I don't know whether that's August or September, around that time.
The Beaverton police that use the Christian church out off of 185th, that's on the north side of 26, and it's a perfect spot for it. I don't know, it's a really big spot because it's got a lot of the ability to have a very long car line. So we'll have to talk to them about where they want to do that if we have 4 NACs.
We'll work those details out as we get a little bit closer, but I just wanted to give everyone a brief on that before we move forward. And Deborah, you might as well give them the exciting news.
The exciting news. It's actually a different number because $5 got added to the account. Long story there. But our checking account balance as of today, $7,654.22. Kind of goes back to Officer Sanders talking about scams and phishing things, and who knows what happened with that. But
Yeah, so
and I
we
did have
are-
a question for
Yes,
Officer Sanders real quick. You mentioned ride-alongs are starting again. Is that an application process on the Beaverton department website?
That I don't know, but it
Okay.
helps if you contact maybe one of us directly, somebody you know. Feel free
Okay.
to contact me or something. I can help arrange that.
All right,
Dave-
thanks.
David, my son will be calling you or sending you a message. I shared your email with him.
Yep,
they-
we've been in
are they-
touch.
Is
Oh,
the Police
good.
Academy-
Oh,
the
please.
Police Academy starting up again?
Yeah, the Citizens Academy is.
Yeah.
Yep, we just put on our first one a couple weeks ago. So
Okay.
Yep.
And then you'll have a fall one then?
I don't believe I know what the schedule is
Yeah.
at this point, but
Usually
I
it's also
presume.
good. They're fantastic. They're fantastic.
Well, people, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, especially the guest speakers. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your vision for Beaverton. I think we all believe in our community and want the very best for us all. And I thank you everyone for being here. And I apologize for being 11 minutes late. I hope this will not be held against me and my record going forward. But yes, I really appreciate you staying with us. But thank you very much. And have a great evening. What's left of it.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank
Mike,
you all very much.
Sorry, I know we need to end, but I do have two things I need to make sure that you all know about. And I think maybe I'll have to get with Miles to figure out kind of how to move forward on the combination of these two things. I did apply for the Art Lives Here grant for our art plan
Right.
thing over on,
Yes.
on the trail off of Weir. So that I submitted that at the end of March. I haven't heard yet if we're going to get it. But that being said, I just closed on my house and I'm no longer going to be living in the NAC as of next week.
Oh, no.
Well,
I know. I'm like super
Congratulations.
sad. Thank you so much.
Which neck?
I'll be in Neighbors Southwest though. I checked the map. So I'll be in Neighbors Southwest.
Well, you can be
which
affiliate
does-
member.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I want to talk to Miles about, especially
Yeah.
with this art project. Maybe I can like stay involved. You know,
Well,
just
I
while
will
we
talk
finish
with
that.
him. I will
Okay.
talk with him too, because we don't want to
Okay.
lose you just yet. That's a little bit too
Thanks.
quick, you know.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't want to start taking the notes again.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And submit a grant for the NAC, either Southwest or here, for what you
For
want to
the
do.
art project.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we want to do both. Like we want to get the funding through the Art Lives Here grant, which is 5,000, and then we also want to get as much matching funds as we can
You know,
for
somebody,
the project.
you know, somebody who's on the grant approval for BCCI?
For the matching one, you mean?
Yeah.
I think I do know someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you so
Well-
much. We'll be in touch. We can talk to Miles and we can figure out
And
how
I'll
to
try
move
and
forward.
contact you before I go to DC. So,
Okay, that sounds great.
all right.
And when's your due date?
June 30th. Yeah, so
Wow.
we're moving next week and get settled in and then have a baby.
It's really good. I'm really
Congratulations.
pleased for you.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much. Thanks everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thanks again, everyone.
bye. You say bye?
Have a great evening. Oh, we
Bye.
must wait for him to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
By the way, boy or girl, do you know?